So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad? Where we take a look at an album and we decide, is it that bad? And again, I'm joined by Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Review. So, first of all, how are you guys today?
Doing good. Mhm.
Doing pretty well. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, it's a long weekend here in Puerto Rico, Memorial Day weekend. So what better way to talk about Memorial Day weekend than talk about this album, 6 Feet Under, Nightmares of the Decomposed. And don't you just love to see that while you're having breakfast? That's a lovely picture. So yeah, this album came back in the year 2020. So yeah, uh, I didn't listen to this when it came out because I gotta be honest, I'm never being a huge 6 Feet Under fan, but the people voted, and this was the second album that got the most votes on album that we should talk about. So here we are. We all listened to the album, and now we're here to discuss it. So we'll have our first round, our first impressions. We'll pick the tracks that we think are the worst, and then we will give it a final rating, thumbs down, or will it go to the garbage? So I think we should start with JC because I think JC would know more about this band than us. So JC, what are your initial thoughts on this album?
Yeah, I remember when this one came out. It was actually right after I started my channel. I think I started my channel in September of 2020, which was late. This one came out. I think it was October 2nd. So it was right after. I didn't review it because at that time I wasn't really, I was just starting. But I remember it was when I started checking out other metal channels, and I was watching the Metal Meltdown and Thralls of Metal, and they completely just were saying this was the worst album they've ever heard or anything like that. And I listened to the first single, and I think it was called I think it was the Rotting, where they do these weird pig squeals, and it just sounded just very bad. But after that, I think I might have listened to it once, but I never listened to it. But I know this is just a perfect album to talk about for this type of video. And to be honest with you, a lot of people don't like the band 6 Feet Under. I actually like their first few albums. I thought the first album was very good. But this band is kind of I would consider them like the Nickelback of death metal. It's just that one band that everybody loves to make fun of. So that's my thoughts for now, but I have a lot more to say when we get to the song. So
I just can't believe that JC made a great joke. The Nickelback of death metal. that's that's a good one. So, what about you, Tom? What do you think of this when you first listened to this? I'm guessing you listened to this like this week.
Yeah. That's the thing. I never listened to this when this came out. Like JC, I saw so much negative coverage about this album on lots of different YouTube channels because it was in the middle of COVID and the lockdowns, had lots of time on my hands. I hadn't started my channel yet. I was still thinking about starting a channel about that time. But I just saw, I think it was particularly Metal Trenches I was following at the time, and he really tore into the vocals. It seems to be the thing with this album that you notice when you're listening to it that really stands out above all else as the elephant in the room are Chris Barnes' vocals, which I was going to save going into too much until we talk about each of the tracks that we really don't like. But it is such an elephant in the room on this album. You just can't ignore them. Because, something I noticed is there's some respectable guitar soloing from time to time, but I think the album generally suffers from a bit of a lack of imagination as well. That's even if you take out the vocals, you just leave it with just the music. I still think this album would be kind of bland. And those are sort of my first sort of impressions. As you say, I've only listened to this in the last week. So in fact, I only listened to the whole album all the way through yesterday because I couldn't bear it the first time round to sort of try and put up with it even though it's not a long album. right? Can you imagine if this was the length of some of the other albums? Can you imagine if you had an astonishing type version of Nightmares of the Decomposed for over 2 hours? Can you imagine that? I mean, that would be torture. I mean, this was pretty bad as it was. But can you imagine,
Tom,
right, if
do
they'd have
not
done
give
that?
Chris
I
Barnes
don't give them
idea.
idea. I don't want to give the band 6 feet under. Not that they're going to watch this, but don't want to give them ideas. Don't do that, please, for the next album.
I hope
That
he
would be a
watches.
marathon. Yeah, well, we hope they watch so that they get the message right. Yeah, so
I'll
I
tag
don't have a
them.
lot else to say really. I believe this was the first one that featured the ex-Cannibal Corpse guitarist Jack Owen.
Yeah.
And also, I was quite surprised to see this did quite well in the German album charts, getting to number 35. But that's probably just because of the name of the band, I would say. I reckon a lot of them bought it before they realized what they were getting into in Germany.
German fans, we love you.
We do, yeah. Maybe that must have been the thing, though. It got to number 35. I was just surprised to see that, to be honest. Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
against
So for
Germany,
me,
but I was just surprised.
I actually, I'm not a, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of this band, and I didn't even knew that this came out in 2020. I didn't see the reviews, like, but I know like the Metal Meltdown really torched it, and Metal Trenches, I think also torched it as well. So the first time I listened to this was this week, and yesterday I sat down and I listened to it all the way through, and it was as painful as like drinking like some nails going down your throat. That's how painful of a listen this was. And we've listened to some stinkers on this series, but oh my god, uh this album, there's so much wrong with it, but we'll keep it to later in the video. But yeah, on first listen, or the listens I was really not enjoying it at all. I thought it was weird, and yeah, the voice. I'll talk more about Chris Barnes' voice. Uh, yeah, plus the dude looks like he just died and put on some dreadlocks. Yeah, like I don't know. I'm sorry if you're white, don't do dreadlocks unless you're Max Cavalera. He gets a pass because he's Brazilian. But anyone else, no, please don't do dreadlocks, please. But yeah, it was a interesting listen nonetheless. So let's talk about the worst of the worst tracks. JC, take it away.
Okay. My first one, I went with Zodiac. They were going for that like slower song, but it was just like very lazy and repetitive. It just I in my notes here I just copy pasted some of the lyrics, and one of the lyrics is just like Zodiac, Zodiac. They keep repeating it like over and over, like 12 times, and just like the rest of the lyrics are just like there's really nothing much there. So that one was very repetitive. Then I have the song track number 6 called "The Noose." First of all, like it's a song about suicide, so they kind of gave me like this like warning, like little label, like they say like they ask you like, do you want to proceed? It's like a sensitive subject, and I'm like, okay, but it's just like new metal, but they do these like isolated vocals where they play the guitar riff and then like it's like silent, and then Chris Barnes' vocals are like all isolated. It just sounds like very just very bad. And then like they do those like pig squeals, which a lot of people would make fun of. And that one was bad, and it's just not really a well written song. And the last one I have a track number 12, Without Your Life. The same thing. I think it's just the lyrics were really bad. I mean the music wasn't that great either. It's just typical death metal. I mean, there's maybe some thrash metal mixed in with it, but just like these lyrics, like they didn't like really think about like what they were writing. So the chorus says, "Now you're dead without your life. Now you're dead, you're dying. Now you're dead, you're dying." I mean, are you dead or are you dying? I mean, like it doesn't make sense. So that's all. That's my three. Obviously, I could have picked a lot more, but let's see what you guys pick. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tom.
I also picked Zodiac. I think it is, like JC said, it's a very uninspired, I was going to say inspired, uninspired track musically.
Mm.
And the one thing is, with this track in particular, it was the first time it really struck me just how much it sounded like Chris Barnes was actually struggling. Like he's really struggling with his vocals. You think of a Sesame Street character, maybe with a really bad throat infection, you
Mhm.
probably get close to how Chris Barnes' vocals are on this album. It's just that's kind of how it sounds. With harsh vocals and death metal vocals, I think they have to have a good flow. A lot of people don't appreciate how hard it is to do harsh vocals and to really pull them off well. I think it just sounds like he's just it's just a problem maybe with breath control or something with the way he's doing his vocals on throughout this album. The thing that makes me wonder, did no one pull him to one side or say something in the band or anything to him before this album was finally recorded and everything, and just say, this isn't going to work? Where was it makes me wonder. I don't know anything about Chris Barnes, and I don't want to kind of prejudge too much because I haven't listened to a lot of other 6 Feet Under albums, so I'm not in a great position apart from what I've heard on this album, which is pretty bad. But it does make you wonder, well, what was the process here? What were they thinking? And uh, was there just the band were just happy to stay silent about it? I don't know. It's just, I find it interesting that this was the final cut of the album that they said, yeah, we'll go with that. And there was no process maybe where somebody said, look, this isn't great at all. And I just find that interesting, but with an album like this as well. So yeah, Zodiac, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent. Zodiac's my first one. My second one's The Rotting, because that's where you get the really bad wheezy ease coming into things, and it's just really just sounds so strange and scratchy and like a hiss or something, like a bad hiss from a cat or something. It's like, I couldn't do it myself though. I mean, maybe he thought it was something unique. I mean, maybe that was the thinking, that this is like nothing anyone's ever done before. I've never heard a sound like that on many other death metal albums I can think of. I know Pig Squeals, right? Like JC says, Pig Squeals. I've never heard something quite as kind of strange and bizarre as the vocal or that technique or whatever it is. I say technique is perhaps giving it too much credit, but I don't know, to be honest. So yeah, I didn't really like The Rotting. And the other one I've picked is The Noose, which again, that JC was saying about the lyrics, I mean, it's just, I mean, it's not very inspired. I mean, a lot of the songwriting is a kind of another problem with the album, is I think it lacks a songwriting strength at all. It doesn't really have much in the way of songwriting, and the riffing is okay in places on this album, not great. And The Noose, I don't think is any different really from that. It's kind of uninspired. Once again, I've said that word yet again. I'm just going to repeat myself time and time again with these tracks. I think it's just not great. But maybe I will say one or two slightly positive things. I'll save that for the final round. So that was my three, I think: Zodiac, The Rotting, and The Noose.
Nice. So that leaves me. I actually have different choices. There's so much shit in this album to pick
Yeah.
from, but one song that I was listening to the album, and it's like the fourth song or fifth song. It's called Migraine. And congratulations, Chris Barn. You gave me a fucking migraine with this song. He's like, migraine. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And I was reading the lyrics, and he says migraine so much. And this is a problem that this album has. Like every song title, he repeats like 20 fucking times on each song. But migraine, the way he shouted migraine, it actually, my heart started hurting. I'm like, oh my God, this song is doing exactly what the name is. It gave me a migraine. And I was like reading, I don't even understand what the fucking song was about. What gave him a migraine? Is it the sound of his own voice?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because the lyrics are about like just like chopping up this cadaver with an axe, and but like migraine doesn't really make any sense. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
Why did the severed head had a migraine? Like because you chopped off its fucking head. I'm like, what the fuck is this song about? I'm like, I'm like, if you're gonna write a song about migraine, just write a song about having a migraine, maybe taking some Advil, and maybe you will feel better, Chris. So yeah, that song to me really stood out at how bad it was, and because it didn't make sense. Another song that I thought was terrible and kind of stupid too, the lyrics is "Drink blood, get high." I'm like, what? He's like, "Drink blood, get high." It sounded it sounded like a drunk version of the Cookie Monster on crack. That's that's what it sounded like. If the Cookie Monster did crack and was drunk, that's what it sounded like. Drink blood and get high. And also the lyrics are atrocious. I'm like, what the he's like talking about like the drinking blood of like the dead and then he gets high. And I'm like, what the fuck? So it was weird. The songs that Zodiac is terrible.
Yeah,
Zodiac is so bad that I think that the real Zodiac killer might come didn't. I'm surprised that he didn't come out of hiding and said, "Hey, Chris Barnes, you're fucking my legacy up with this song." Like, because for yeah, that was a serial killer that was never caught. I think in San Francisco, there was even a movie about it. They were like,
Yeah.
but they never caught him. But yeah, the song is that song is lazy. But my third pick is not Zodiac. It's Dead Girls Don't Scream. I'm like, ugh. It's so just the title alone is so
yeah,
cringy.
bit weird.
Like really, man, Dead Girls Don't Scream. Like, come on, and the song is bad, and just the title alone, it's atrocious. So yeah, those are my three picks for the worst songs. So now we're going to the final round, and I don't think it's gonna be a shocker for anyone. So, JC, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is definitely bad. And like Tom was saying, I like you wonder like when they were recording this, where like why did they release this? Like did they listen to this album before they released it and said, okay, it's ready? I mean, is that what they did? I remember the guys on Throw Some Metal talking about this as well. I think one of the guys was saying that he thought maybe like they were under contract to do one more record, and they just like made it like this, like just as on purpose, like just to like kind of troll the record company or something like that. I mean, that's a possibility because it's kind of like hard to believe that these guys actually like listen to this and we're like, okay, it's good, it's ready. I mean, there was just so many things that like there's no. I think they were going for like 6 Feet Under has always been one of those bands where they were like death metal, but they were kind of like a little more like accessible. So maybe they were trying to appeal to a wider audience, but even that, I don't know. But anyway, it's definitely a thumbs down for me. It's like if I had to choose between listening to this or Lulu, I don't know what I would pick. I mean, I said I would never listen to Lulu again, but if it was a choice, I might go with Lulu because. But then again, like this one would be over sooner, so I don't know. It would be a hard choice, but anyway, it's a thumbs down for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What about you, Tom?
Thumbs down. Yeah, thumbs down for me as well. It's just it's just a really bad. I think it's a really bad album, as JC said. It doesn't seem like they had anybody else kind of to, or like when they sat down and listened to it, they're just, you wouldn't have thought most people would have said, yeah, let's release this. So it could have been that they were trolling the record company or something. I don't know. So I was going to say whether the album has any redeeming features, and it almost doesn't really, but there are a few respectable moments with guitar solos where it does sound like a bit of an effort has been made. There was a song called Death Will Follow, which had quite an infectious guitar riff that I kind of grooved along to a little bit. I was like, oh, this is okay. I think that was the one moment in the whole album, though, where I wasn't going, when is this going to end? You know,
hmm.
looking at my wristwatch or whatever, and just thinking, when is this album actually going to end? So yeah, it's that bad. This one is that bad. I think it's one of the worst we've discussed actually as well. I think I mean, I was wondering earlier, would I listen to this or something like No Fixed Address by Nickelback? Because, like Hector, you were saying, isn't it? Like, or maybe it was JC that said it's like the Nickelback of death metal. This band, because they get a lot of noise, a lot of hate and stuff. And yeah, this is one of those albums where it feels like with No Fixed Address for Nickelback, this is an album that sort of justifies a lot of that noise and a lot of the reason why people moan about it, because it's just you know, they're not using their privilege as a band to release this album, you know, release this music out to wider audiences, and release something really good. And they've just gone, you know, let's just release something that sounds kind of trashy. So yeah, I think that's the only place it belongs, is in the trash can.
Yeah. So that leaves me. So my final thoughts on this. This album is unlistenable to me. Chris Barnes' vocals are one. I think they're the worst vocals I've heard someone put on tape, on recording. They're just so bad. They're like you know, because there's death metal vocalists that are good, but this is just atrocious. Like let Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse, who's a band that actually Chris Barnes was a part of at the
Yeah.
beginning.
But originally, yeah.
He sings this type of death metal great.
Mm-hmm.
And in his voice does not give me a fucking migraine. But this, the lyrics are bad. The music is subpar. Like you said, there's a part like a solo, but then you're like, oh, a cool solo, and then you get the Chris Barnes thing, and I'm like, just shut the fuck up, Chris. You're drunk. Go home. Why? That's because you're drinking blood of the dead and getting high. But yeah, it's just unlistenable. His voice gave me a migraine, like I said, and this was an album that I couldn't wait to turn off. It was a terrible experience. I put it like too early in the morning. I'm like, fuck this shit. I change it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta listen to something else. It's too early
You
for
got,
this
after
crap.
this, you have to listen to something great, don't you? Just to wash out the
Oh my god, yeah. And like JC was saying, like I didn't like Lulu, but at least I think that out of all the albums that we've covered, Is It That Bad? This is the worst one. This is the worst album out of them all, because even, oh my god, even Dream Theater, The Astonishing, has some good musical moments. And I can't believe I'm saying it. I even enjoyed Kid Rock's album better than this, because we know he's making fun, but with this album, we don't know if they're being serious or not. Like, someone should have told Chris Barnes when they were recording this. Like, could you imagine? I don't know who produced this crap. You imagine the
Mhm.
producer, like probably was a producer that just wanted to be over with, and he's like, "Did you like my take? Yeah, great take. It was a great take, Chris. You
I
nailed
mean,
it."
that's it's the interesting thing. It does sound like the band maybe had just had enough, because there are a couple of tracks which finish really abruptly. Like they just decided, yeah, let's just finish the song there. It feels like maybe there was something in that they just had had enough with. And like you were saying about what Thralls of Metal was saying about a contract and stuff, maybe that was it. They just didn't feel that
Yeah, and
they had the energy.
the worst thing about this album is that it came out in fucking 2020. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't need this shit in 2020. That year sucked hard enough. And then you give us an album called Nightmares of the Decomposed. No, no, we didn't want to listen to that in 2020. I don't know when in 2020 this came out. I think it was October or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was super bad timing too. So I wonder if that also, because maybe a lot of people reviewed it because we were all home and people had to listen to stuff. And yeah, I'm glad I didn't listen to this album back in 2020, because it would have depressed the fuck out of me. But I listen to it now because you people voted to review this album. So obviously, this is a super thumbs down for me. This goes in the trash can that goes into the toilet goes into the bottom of the earth and never to hear from again. And if Chris Barnes decides to make another album, I hope the producer says the first thing like, Chris, we gotta work on your vocals, man. If you sound like that, just please retire. And I know that he has. I remember the Metal Meltdown did a video about him because Chris Barnes is one of these vocalists that talk a lot and gets in trouble. And I don't know what the topic was, but he said something that was controversial. Oh, he was actually talking, I think, talking shit about modern metal bands, like death metal bands, that they weren't that good. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Chris. I've listened to some modern death metal bands, and they kick your band's ass, like hands down. So yeah, this is a terrible album. So we all agree, Six Feet Under, Nightmares of the Decomposed is certified trash. So if you like this series and the videos that we're putting out, don't forget to give us a like. Do not forget to subscribe to my friend Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Reviews. The Tom the Green Man, he does album reviews. He talks about movies and books for those of you that read. And he has a great series about shoegaze. And he's interviewing shoegaze bands. So if you like shoegaze, Tom the Green Man, he's the guru of shoegaze of us all. And with JC Rock and Metal Reviews, you know, he's got great videos, and JC really gives you the history of the band. So he's like the teacher. Like he gives you like, hey, this track was recorded in this place, and while they were recording it, the singer was drinking a margarita, and not just any margarita, a very flavored one. So he has those, like, people were like, oh, I enjoy the album better now because I knew he was drinking a margarita while drinking that song. And obviously, if you watch my channel, you know that I like humor and I like to curse. So if you're easily offended by by cursing, then that's what I do on my channel. So so coming up next, we're gonna. I think we. What do you guys? We have to do another poll, right?
Into a poll.
Yeah, yeah, another, we'll put up another poll.
Yeah, like send us like we'll send we'll do like another poll with 5 releases,
Yeah,
and we'll pick the first 2 that get the most votes, and that will be the next continuation of the video. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the shield dude on a couch, and we'll see you on the next episode of Is It That Bad? Thank you and good night.